Welcome to the deep dive.
Got to be here.
Today we're digging into 2 Samuel chapter 10.
Right, a really fascinating story.
Our mission is basically to unpack how this attempt at diplomacy just went completely sideways.
Yeah, and sparked this major war. It tells you a lot about how things worked back then.
Okay, so let's set the scene. King Nahash of the Ammonites, he dies.
Uh-huh. And his son, Hanun, he takes the throne.
Now King David, he had a connection with Nahash.
Yeah, the text says Nahash had shown David kindness at some point. We don't know the exact details, but there was a positive history there.
So David wants to, continue that. Show kindness to the son, Hanun.
Makes sense. So he sends an official delegation.
Right. To express sympathy, offer condolences for his father's death.
Standard procedure, really.
Right.
A gesture of goodwill, maybe hoping to cement good relations with the new king.
But this is exactly where it all falls apart.
Completely. The Ammonite nobles get involved.
They go to King Hanun and basically plant this seed of doubt.
They say, hold on, do you really think David sent these guys just to be nice?
No way. He sent them to spy on us, to check out the city, figure out how to conquer us.
So this suspicion, whether it was real fear or maybe some internal politics.
It totally changes Hanun's perspective. He buys it.
And he reacts, well, pretty drastically.
He seizes David's men,
And then he does something designed purely to humiliate them, publicly.
shaves off half of each man's beard.
Which, you gotta remember, a beard was a huge symbol of honor and manhood then. Shaving it was deeply shameful.
And then he cuts their robes, their garments, off midway up, right at the buttocks.
Leaving them exposed, utterly stripped of dignity.
Sends them away like that, just completely disgraced.
It's a massive insult, not just to the men, but to David himself. A clear act of contempt. The Bible says the Ammonites became a stench to David.
Meaning they were now his enemies.
Yeah,
Irredeemably offensive.
pretty much, yeah.
So word gets back to David about what happened.
And his first reaction is actually about his men's shame.
Yeah, he sends word to them, tells them, look, don't come back to Jerusalem yet.
Wait in Jericho until your beards have grown back. He's trying to shield them from further humiliation.
But the Ammonites, they realize they've gone too far.
Uh-huh. They know David isn't just going to ignore this. They've made themselves hated.
So instead of trying to fix it, maybe apologize.
They double down. They prepare for the inevitable conflict.
They start hiring mercenaries. A lot of mercenaries.
Arameans mainly. 20,000 from Beth Rehob and Zobah.
Another 1,000 from Makkah. 12,000 from Tob. That's over 30,000 hired soldiers.
They're gearing up for a major war.
David sees this military buildup. He has to respond.
Of course. So he sends Joab, his main general.
With the entire army, the experienced fighting men.
Joab arrives and assesses the situation. The Ammonites are positioned defensively near their city gate.
And the hired Arameans are drawn up for battle out in the open country.
So Joab's forces are potentially caught between them. Enemies in front, enemies behind.
But Joab's a smart commander. He comes up with a plan.
He splits his army, takes the elite troops himself.
Goes straight for the main threat, the Arameans out in the field.
And he puts the rest of the army under his brother Abishai's command.
Tells him, your job is to handle the Ammonites at the gate. If I need help, you help me. If you need help, I'll help you.
Right. And he gives that famous speech, "Be strong. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight."
So the first battle begins. Joab attacks the Arameans.
And he defeats them. The Arameans turn and flee.
When the Ammonites see their allies running away.
They lose their nerve, too. They pull back from Abishai and retreat inside their city walls.
So Joab wins the initial battle, but the Ammonites are safe inside their city for now. Joab heads back to Jerusalem.
But it's definitely not over, especially with the Arameans.
Right. One of their main kings, Hadadezer, he wasn't going to let this defeat stand.
No way. He regroups, and this time he brings in even more forces.
Gathers Arameans from beyond the Euphrates River. A huge army.
Under the command of a general named Shobak. This is a much bigger threat now.
So big that David himself decides to take command.
Exactly. This needs the king's attention. David gathers all of Israel's fighting men.
Crosses the Jordan River.
And meets this new, massive Aramean army head-on at a place called Helam.
This is the decisive battle. David leads Israel against Shobak and the Arameans.
And the result, a complete victory for Israel.
The text gives some pretty specific numbers for the Aramean losses.
Yeah, it mentions David killing the men of 700 chariots and 40,000 foot soldiers. And crucially,
Shobak, their commander, is struck down and dies right there in the battle.
That's devastating for the Arameans.
So what's the fallout from this major defeat?
Well, with Hadazer's army shattered and his commander killed, all those smaller kingdoms that were allied with him or under him.
They see the writing on the wall.
Exactly. They decide it's time to switch sides. They make peace treaties with Israel.
And become subject to David. His influence expands significantly.
And maybe just as importantly, the Arameans are now too afraid to help the Ammonites anymore. Their alliance is broken.
So it all started with David trying to show kindness after a king's death.
Which got misinterpreted because of suspicion.
Led to that shocking act of humiliation.
Which triggered a defensive buildup, then war.
Ending with major battles, shifting power dynamics, and the Ammonites left isolated.
It's a powerful chain reaction, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a really stark reminder for us even today, right? How misunderstandings, suspicion, and especially reactions driven by pride or insult
Can escalate so quickly and have consequences far beyond what anyone initially imagined.
You look at this account in 20 Samuel, and it just screams danger about misperception.
It really does. It shows how fragile diplomacy can be when trust isn't there, and how one act, seen as deeply disrespectful, can just lock everyone into a cycle of conflict. It makes you think about that intersection of honor, fear, power, and perception, how a single misstep, badly handled, can change everything, even on a geopolitical scale. How often do we still see echoes of that today?